a chance a couple times to regroup and get a drink of water and such as we go through this show. It's a lot of talking to do. So we're going to take one more break a little bit later, but now it is time for our NWSL season preview. Didn't get to do this with MLS just because of when we started this project and when their season started, but there's a nice little break here for NWSL to do this. I always enjoy sort of diving deep into these leagues and giving a broad overview as the season begins. So, of course, they played the Challenge Cup first. We have the semifinals coming up next week. So this is sort of a weird thing where they're going to start the regular season and still play those semifinal games and then obviously the final. But we are to the point where, as I mentioned on Monday, some of the teams are just kind of using this as a way to sort of get organized. Other teams are in more of a position to really make a run at trying to win the whole thing. So we're going to go team by team real quick, sort of an overview of what they've done so far and what to look for this season. One of the teams that absolutely benefited from having a Challenge Cup to tinker with some things and learn about their squad before the regular season starts. Two expansion teams, one of them being Angel City FC. Of course, this is the powerhouse ownership group with all kinds of incredible people in it, from Magic Johnson to Serena Williams to Nicole Kidman. You go on and on and on. The team has been a little bit of a work in progress. They finished with a win, 4 losses, 1 draw in their 6 Challenge Cup games. They were tied for the worst goal differential, tied for the most goals allowed. They are led by Freya Kuhn, who came over after doing a phenomenal job at what is now Gotham FC, sort of taking that club from a really challenging place and moving them to the point where they were really on the doorstep of sort of competing for trophies and really becoming difficult to play against. So she left that to start this project. The star power, the firepower is there. So far, this attack has been balanced. Ultimately, it's all about Christen Press. That is your big name to know here. That's the star that Angel City brought in to sort of kick this thing off and get people excited. She got to go home. So this is it's hard to really put too much stock into what they did in the Challenge Cup just because they're in such a strange situation where this team had never played for this manager. They had never played with each other. Players are still trying to figure things out. So expect them to really continue to build this. There's talent there. This is not... The expansion teams are not built the way some of Major League Soccer's are. To me, this is more similar to a... Maybe not so far as Atlanta United, but maybe a Nashville, where they came in and they were good right away, absolutely competitive, than one of those longer-term building projects that you sometimes see in MLS. Our second team, the Chicago Red Stars. Of course, this is, over the past 5 or so years, been one of the more consistent, better, successful teams in the league. They finished the Challenge Cup 2-2-2, with Mallory Pugh contributing 4 of their 8 goals. She's been in terrific form, really becoming the go-to attacking option and star of this team. Your other big names who are kind of regulars in this team now and have been for at least a little while, Tierney Davidson, Alyssa Nair, both members of the U.S. Women's National Team. The other key player who is not there, Julie Ertz, congratulations to her and her husband, Zach. She's having a baby, so she is not playing right now. So and there's Akeelia Watt in there. This is still absolutely a talented team. Maybe not quite as loaded in years past without a Sam Kerr and a Julie Ertz in there who were so vital to what this team became. But they are still dangerous. Mallory Pugh, like I said, is playing absolutely terrific. They've been good in tournaments when you get to the playoffs, those kind of things. So definitely don't rule them out. If they get there and can qualify for the playoffs, they are absolutely a force to be reckoned with. Kind of on the other end of the spectrum here, we have the Houston Dash. And first, I want to take a moment to address the fact that their head coach, James Clarkson, yesterday was suspended pending an investigation into improper conduct. The team is not releasing any information. It is unclear exactly what the circumstances surrounding this are, other than there was he's suspended pending this investigation that is going on by the league. That it doesn't sound as though he is going. That this is kind of procedural. It does not sound as if he's going to return, but we don't know that for sure. The details are still very unclear. This, of course, follows the other three coaches: Paul Riley in North Carolina, Rory Dames in Chicago, and I'm now blanking on Richie Burke in Washington over the past year and a half, who have also left due to different kinds of improper conduct. It sounds like this is somewhere in that same ballpark. Don't want to make too many assumptions about it, but it's unfortunate. Reading that Paul Riley stuff was incredibly difficult. Of course, like I said, we don't know the details here, but just seeing yet another coach getting... It sounds like this has to do with mistreatment of players on a very basic level. How deep and exactly what happened, of course, I don't know. But to see, again, players having to kind of fight for themselves is disappointing. But at the same time, at least the league is stepping up and really taking a no-tolerance approach to this and holding people accountable for their actions and trying to create a different culture within this league. So keep your eye on that moving forward. As for the team themselves, 2 wins, 4 losses in the Challenge Cup, tied for the most goals conceded. They scored 7 goals, all of them by different players. This is still very much sort of the core of that 2019 team that won the Challenge Cup. Rachel Daly's leading you up top, Jane Campbell in goal, your Shea Grooms, all of those kind of pieces. Don't have necessarily as many high-profile names. Rachel Daly is obviously one. Other than that, though, it's not as loaded with particularly U.S. women's national team stars. But again, this team has been good, finding ways to make runs in that knockout format. So we'll see how they progress and sort of what this season holds with so much going on behind the scenes right now. Up next is the Kansas City Current. As I mentioned Monday, they were one of the teams who did qualify for the semifinals of the Challenge Cup. 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. This has really been a 2-person show. Kristen Hamilton, 4 goals. Elise Bennett, 4 assists. And you got to give this team credit, because you look at the roster and you look at the way this thing's played out, and it doesn't exactly match up. Sam Mewis got hurt. Lynn Williams got hurt and is done for the season. Those are your 2 biggest names on this team. And yet, you go down the list and sort of who's played these minutes, all these different players getting multiple starts in this competition. They have done a terrific job of just finding ways to mix and match the pieces, figure out how to play without 2 central figures. And here they are. We're going to see what they can do against some of the really top rosters in this league when it comes to the semifinals and the final, and whether they can continue this and whether they can keep it up in the regular season. But off to a terrific start. On paper, this team, I would argue, looks even better. It's just the pieces. And Sam Mewis will be back. Lynn Williams will not. So you've got another difference maker coming in, but the idea of Sam Mewis and Lynn Williams and what you have now, 2 very different things. But ultimately, they're doing a terrific job of just that, next player up and dealing with the circumstances they've been dealt. So we'll see if they can keep that up in the regular season as well. Mentioned them briefly before. Up next is New York Gotham FC. This is the rebranded Sky Blue FC. 1 win, 2 losses, 3 draws in the Challenge Cup. This team underwent a significant overhaul in the offseason, bringing in Allie Krieger, Ashlyn Harris, and Christy Mewis. Of course, Kelly Lloyd also then retiring. So there are a lot of the same pieces, but from a key player perspective, it looks very different. The other noteworthy thing here is that Allie Long, who's been was traded, I believe it was last season, and is of course become a rock in that midfield, is also expecting twins. Congratulations to her. So she is not available at the moment. So you look at this thing on paper, and you've got McCall Zerboni, Christy Mewis, Allie Krieger, Ashlyn Harris, some other players who have already had success as a team in here, and you've got to really like these pieces. My question comes, what does this look like in attack? What does this look like up top? Christy Mewis is leading the way with 2 goals and an assist. For this team to take the next step, it's got to be more than Christy Mewis. Somebody else has to be carrying that goal-scoring load. And that has been one of the shortcomings. They're organized defensively. They have multiple players who can score. Midge Purse is up there as another very good player in this league. But can they sort of get this thing going where you have those reliable goal-scoring options, and it doesn't have to come from your midfield? It can be more of a traditional attack, and somebody is consistently putting the ball in the back of the net. So that's the question for Gotham. North Carolina Courage are up next. This is a team that has kind of taken a step back. Granted, they were arguably the most dominant team in sports in this country, so a step back is a fair thing to expect. They were absolutely terrific for a few years there, and end up 3 wins, no defeats, 3 losses in the Challenge Cup group stage, if you want to call it that. This team has also underwent some significant changes, going from an incredibly star-studded roster to a more balanced group, with the exception of Dabinia, who just continues to do her thing. She scored 4 goals in those 6 games. They're tied for the most goals with 12. Taylor Smith is also playing really well, 2 goals and an assist. So even though they don't have all of these big names anymore, they're playing really, really well. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of develops, because you can go through the list of players who, were part of this team and the juggernaut they built, and they're all in different places now. And so what does this rendition of the Courage look like moving forward? But so far, so good. Speaking of loaded rosters and having stars, that is what we've got going over there in Washington with OL Reign. Megan Rapinoe, Rose Lavelle, and reigning league MVP Jess Fishlock. Megan Rapinoe did not play in the Challenge Cup, so she is still working her way back. Again, incredibly balanced attack in the Challenge Cup so far. 4 wins, 0 losses, 2 draws. 10 different players with a goal. Bethany Balser has 2. That's it. And they've only allowed 5 goals. That's tied for the best. So really balanced. Great in attack. Great in defense. It may not have been perfect and as convincing as you wanted at times, but make no mistake about it, this is the best roster in the league. This is the best team in the league. This is the team to beat. How it all plays out, we'll have to see. But the idea of actually getting a full season out of Rapinoe and Lavelle. Rapinoe, of course, has been there forever. Lavelle just came in and sort of the whole, what are we doing during COVID? There are a lot of, her rights got traded and all of these things. But she is there now, finally, to sort of actually get going for a full season. So we're going to see what this looks like. But fully expect OL Reign to be a factor. Challenge Cup, of course, still in that, and then moving forward into the regular season and playoffs, I expect them to be going absolutely nowhere. They're going to be right up there with the best teams in this league all season long. Up next, the Orlando Pride, only team to not win a game in the group stage of the Challenge Cup, struggling to score goals, only had 4. Unfortunately, you also get Marta tearing her ACL. That's one of your real creative forces. Of course, she's an all-time great. And Cindy LaRue also didn't get to play very much. So you've got some pieces in there that maybe this is a different conversation heading into the regular season if LaRue and Marta are both coming back. But unfortunately, like I said, Marta's done for the year. Darian Jenkins has been the bright spot, 2 goals and an assist. This is also a team that traditionally had been loaded with well-known U.S. Women's National Team players, of course, Alex Morgan, and those players aren't there anymore. So they're also sort of like the Courage undergoing a transition of sorts. We'll see what kind of lessons are learned from the struggles they had, whether they can start putting the ball in the back of the net, how much of a factor LaRue becomes. But this could be in a league where your margins are so slim because everybody's so good because you have so few spots available for players. It could be a long season in Orlando. Then we go to the opposite side of the country and the Portland Thorns. Again, traditionally a team loaded with big-time players. 3 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. They were edged by the Spirit on goal difference and only allowed 5 goals. That was tied for the fewest in the league. So they just missed out on the semifinals of the competition. Sophia Smith has scored 3 of their 8 goals. Of course, you've still got the big names there. Maybe not quite as many. Lindsay Horan is in France right now. But you've still got your Christine Sinclair, all kinds of talent. And the new addition, which is really what I want to highlight here, Janine Becky, Canadian international, just came off a terrific Olympics, has just gotten there and is sort of fitting into this team and getting into game shape. So this is kind of a perfect, we get this transaction done, we'll throw her on the field, sort of get her up to speed. That's the kind of thing you can use this competition for. And now heading into the regular season, she should be good to go. That's a big-time addition. This team is going to be able to score plenty of goals with her and Sophia Smith up there. So that this team has looked good so far and could be getting even better by the time we get to the playoffs. Then we head to Louisville, Racing Louisville FC. 8 goals, all by different players. Again, really, really balanced attack. Eventually, this is going to be about Jess McDonald. That's your big name. That's your goal scorer coming, as so many players have sort of moved. I talked about from the Courage, coming to Louisville and really looking to become an even bigger star. Of course, she was scoring 20 goals in North Carolina, has already scored for Louisville and made her presence felt. And the other noteworthy thing here, as a young team from a club standpoint, trying to sort of build into this league, 5 of their 6 goals were conceded and 2 losses to the dash. So there was a lot of promise shown, and they end with 1 win, 2 losses, 3 draws. So it was close. You draw half your games. There is absolutely a reason for optimism and to think this clicks a little bit more. This team could actually have a really good season. So definitely something to keep an eye on in Louisville. Then we go to our other expansion team. That is the San Diego Wave. Angel City might have the ownership group star power. San Diego Wave has the player star power, starting with Alex Morgan. She tied for the most shots, had the most shots on goal in this competition, so she is settling in just fine. You also have Abby Dahlkemper, who was brought in to help anchor the defense. Those are your 2 U.S. Women's National Team stalwarts. Finished with a win, 3 losses, 2 draws. Again, just trying to figure out how to put these pieces together, what your preferred starting lineup is, all of those kind of things, using this competition to sort of set the stage and catch up to some of these teams who have been together for a while, with this being San Diego's first season. The other name I wanted to highlight is Caitlyn Sheridan. who came over. Ashlyn Harris replaced her in New Jersey with Gotham. And so Caitlyn Sheridan, again, established international, is in net. So that's a terrific addition. She's been one of the best goalies in this league for a couple of years now. Has shown on multiple occasions. I talked about sort of Freya Coombe helping to get Gotham to a whole nother level and sort of pushing at knocking on the door of the better teams in this league and looking like they can play with anybody. Caitlyn Sheridan was a big reason why. Her ability to keep them in games and to win games for them. So that's a really nice option to lean back on in net for a team that's still trying to figure out how to play together and sort of what this is ultimately going to look like. So there's, again, plenty of room for optimism, and we'll see where this goes. I would be concerned if Alex Morgan wasn't clicking, but she's getting her scoring opportunities, and that is really all you can ask for, because she's going to take advantage of them. And finally, last but certainly not least, your defending NWSL champions, the Washington Spirit. 2 wins, no losses, 4 draws. Ashley Hatch is quite simply the best goal scorer in this league at the moment. Alex Morgan has something to say about that. But you got a golden boot. She scored the most goals so far in this competition. And you combine her with Trinity Rodman, they have 9 goals in these 6 games. That is a simply terrifying duo in attack. I have said on other platforms before, and this is not in any way, shape, or form a commentary in a negative way on Dennis Rodman. I'm really getting to the point where not only is it possible, but I believe Trinity Rodman will have a better career than her father. Of course, it's going to be hard to compare the two. But she is absolutely outstanding. If you have not watched Trinity Rodman play, do yourself a favor. She is going to, now she's sort of in the cycle for the U.S. women's national team. She's going to be there for the next decade plus. She is incredible. Those two up top are a handful to deal with. As good as any duo in the league, if not significantly better than every other attacking duo you can think of. And then on the back end, you've got Kelly O'Hara, Sam Staub, Emily Sonnet. Plenty of experience, U.S. national team experience. So that there's some really nice balance here. They're not top heavy. The one thing I would say, if you're going to look for a place to pick a hole, creativity, specifically in the midfield. Trinity Rodman gives you some. Kelly O'Hara gives you plenty with her ability to deliver crosses from her outside back spot. Do you have, Andy Sullivan isn't exactly that kind of player. Do you have somebody that's going to be able to do the kind of things, for example, Dabinia does for North Carolina, and Jess Fishlock for OL Reign? Just taking control of a game, being the one to unlock the defense. Certainly they haven't had any issues getting the ball in the back of the net, so this could be an entirely moot point. But if I'm looking for somewhere to have some questions, and if I'm looking to expose something, that would be it. I want to take one final break here, and then we're going to do our weekend look ahead, the way we're going to end every show, just talking about the biggest games you need to know about this weekend and setting the stage for them. Stick with us.